openings and closings for HTML head, title, body, and then I go into unordered list, UL, and then underneath that I have items and LI, and I'm closing them all out. Looks like I'm indenting properly, and then below the UL, I have OL, ordered list, and I have items and LI and close. And it looks like the syntax is right, but I just, when I open it up in Chrome, nothing comes up. It's just a blank page.
Okay. Let's see what's going on here. So I'll just create real quick an empty file. Let's move indexed to HTML. Let's move readme to us. Okay, so I'm going to make a directory. Example. So now I have this new file called example. I'll do cd example. Now when I type in ls, I don't see anything because I'm in a new file that I just created. I'm going to type in touch index.html. This is a bash command to create a file. Since I gave it the extension HTML, it already knows that VS Code knows that that's an HTML file. That's not a feature of the terminal, it's a feature of VS Code. So I just created this by typing in these commands you guys just saw me type in. So we're in this brand new, completely empty HTML file. And again, if I type in HTML, we have our snippet. So if I enter that in, I'll pull this down. Now, if I do a UL element, my IDE automatically closes it for me. I'll show you guys what this extension is in a second, why my indentation are colorized. But I just want to see what's going on here. So if we have an LI element, we should be able to just type, I'll copy this stuff and have it appear. That was a convenient amount of copying and pasting, but I have saved this now. I know I saved it because I got rid of the circle to the right of the name. And so if I type in open index.html, I do not see anything. You're right. So let's figure out what's going on here. Is it the script tag? No, it's because the UL element is this is actually kind of what the semantic HTML was touching up on, is we need a container. So if we type in div, it'll open that div up for us, but if I hold left click and make sure I select all these elements, and now I hold Alt and I hit the up arrow once, now they're all inside this div. I'll make sure I save. Now let's try refreshing that. Let's take a look. So it's not loading the correct file. It appears that I'm manipulating some different file. Because if the reason I was able to figure that out is because there is nothing within the body tag. If there's nothing in the body tag, then that means we're not opening the right file. So there's something going on here. Let's try and figure this out. It's saved. Style sheet, the title, hello. Content IE edge, and doc type HTML, saved.
I created a separate file and I didn't copy in all the paste. I didn't paste in IE7, IE8, all that kind of stuff. I thought when we opened up the tag there, if you put the exclamation point, so it is exclamation point doc type space HTML. If we did that, like it's kind of like double slashes, like it doesn't read it, right?
Kind of, yeah.
So I left that alone, and then below that I just put HTML.
You do want the doc type just so that way, this is essentially the way the compiler will read the file and know that this is an HTML file. So,
So I don't need HTML again below that.
no, you need a header, you need a body, and it's not always explicitly needed, but you need a foot. Why is it there? Oops.
Well, the boilerplate will add it in the way he's talking about.
One more time?
Boilerplate will add it in the same way he's talking about. Where you have
Yes.
the decoration at the top,
Yes.
and you have an opening HTML.
Yeah, correct. I'm curious as to why this isn't working because I'm pretty sure I was just doing examples with this yesterday. Or, pardon me, not yesterday, but on Thursday. So, it's kind of, if we're saving it, we saw the changes when we saved it on your computer, right?
Yep, that's why I'm like, okay, this is new.
Okay, let's use our file explorer to go to our documents, galvanize, we're not doing Java, example.
Okay. All right. I did it. So this is what I was doing wrong. So I had head at the top, so I was like, it's kind of like an echelon, right? So I was doing HTML at the top and bottom. I was doing head and closing head at the top and bottom, and title and closing title at the top and bottom, and then coming down to my list where head needed to be closed with head at the top, title needed to be closed with title at the top, and then open up body and then do on my list, close body and then have HTML at the bottom. So it's encapsulating everything within head
I see.
and then encapsulating everything.
Yeah, typically head is where you're going to have all your CDNs and script tags and stuff like that. So for in this instance, you guys might remember this is where I put like test.css before. And that's when I was in the modifying two different files. That's what's going on. Okay. That's why nothing is showing. But you guys may remember that's kind of confusing. Let's try and find that one. This is for HTML, right here, example. If you guys remember this, the fake stuff, right? So in here, I was able to put, I didn't save it, but right here is where I would put fake.css, and that's where I would be able to reference all of my CSS stuff. But that is what your head tag is typically for, is this is where you're going to be doing a lot of code, you're going to be doing a lot of describing exactly what's going on. A lot of this you don't really need to worry about. But the thing you do want to worry about is CDNs and then your style sheet. So here's our style sheet. Just like that with the boilerplate, we do a link. The relation is a style sheet, and the hyperlink reference is to this fake CSS. And then if you guys remember, we just messed around a little bit with those divs and gave them different colors, and we're like stacking them on top of each other and stuff like that. That's what the purpose of the head tag is you kind of put all your JavaScript and logic in the head tag, and then the body is where everything actually like kind of magically comes together. Any questions about that? The head tag? When we get into Bootstrap, let me just close out of that. When we get into Bootstrap, your head element slash tag is where you're actually going to put the CDN. So come into here. What is a CDN? It's right here. See how it's in the head tag? So right now I'm in the UI frameworks lesson. If you guys wanted to follow along, you guys have access to this. If we just scroll down a little bit in the grid system, this is a CDN. So it says it's a link, it's a style sheet, but right here we can see it says CDN inside of the URL, and then of course we also see Bootstrap CDN, so it's kind of a tell. But really all the CDN is a URL that you paste in that gives you extra methods and functions that you wouldn't otherwise be able to use if you didn't import the CDN. And you put your CDNs inside of your head tag. So that's the purpose of your head tag, in case you were curious. But like structural stuff, you all want in your body. Technically the footer is kind of part of the body, so really the two parts of an HTML file are your head and your body. But the footer you could essentially have stuck to the bottom of the page if you want it to always be there. So you could think of that if you want as a separate element, but really everything that makes an HTML file is going to be JavaScript, CSS, HTML, right? You bring in your JavaScript and CSS in the head, and then you just make your HTML in the body. So that's the relationship between these two tags. This head is kind of our brain, aptly named, right? It's the brain of the HTML file, and the body is kind of the skeletal muscular structure of our HTML file.
So the head stuff doesn't really appear on the website. Is that where I put like meta tags and things like that?
Yep. So we have a meta char set UTF-8. This is probably going to be in every single boilerplate you find because I don't think we use any sort of other encoding other than UTF-8. So that would be one meta tag. This probably isn't necessary. We could probably comment this out. This is just accommodating for Internet Edge, or Internet Explorer Edge, which like nobody uses anymore. So that's something that doesn't actually affect your HTML page that you could probably comment out if you didn't want to worry about coding for Internet Explorer. Title is this right here. The little words up at the top, semantic news, JS Fiddle, right? So if I wanted to put it, you know, my home page. Let's save that. Let's figure out where I am. Where am I? Fake. I'm looking for fake example. Okay. Darn it. So it's all broken and stuff like that. But if you look at the top, you can see now it says my home page because I put that in title. So that's the purpose of title. It lets you choose what the tab says. Right. Whoa. There you go. So that's title, and then again, meta description. This isn't necessary. I think that's just more boilerplate. Viewport. Don't think that's necessary. Let's save that and confirm. Yep. So really the head is just like whatever logic, functionality you want to occur. As you can see, I commented out everything except UTF-8, which you want to keep because everything on the internet is UTF-8 encoded. So keep this. But then we just have our title, and then we have our style sheet in the head. That's all I have. I've saved this. You can tell I've saved it because there's no circle to the right. And when I go back to the page and refresh, it still works. Now, granted, the styling is horrible because of all the stuff we were messing around with, but point stands. The head is just kind of whatever you want to import and whatever functionality you need. And then the body finally is the actual structure that your HTML document is going to take. I noticed that there wasn't a lot of people that made it too far in the HTML, so I want to make sure that if there was anything that we got caught up on with the HTML, we address it now, so that way there's no roadblocks, because HTML is the foundation of everything that we're going to be doing. So if there's something that you don't understand about HTML, then now's the time to talk about it, because then everything else is going to be that much harder, because it depends on HTML in order to display your functionality. So if there's some sort of tag you don't understand, if you're kind of curious as to what you should do if you're trying to make something, now's the time to discuss it. Otherwise, we can come on down. We can do this. I think I already clicked on that. So this specifically asks us to add an image element to a link with a fun image above each element, above each collapsible news story. So title goes here, mine explosion by the old well, dynamite to blame. As we can see, there are no image tags. I'm going to pretend like I don't know what that is, so HTML image. We just so happen to get W3 schools. How do we do this? Here's an example. So you can see here they use SRC. That stands for source, but you also can notice here that they're not actually referencing a website. They're referencing a locally hosted file on their hard drive. So you can do this. If you want to download a picture and then use SRC, I think href works as well. You can use either SRC or href to reference a local file on your hard drive. I think you need to use href if you do. Oh no, you can use SRC. So let's use SRC on this image. I'm going to go hacker mode, move this over. Let's click on this. So it looks like actually they're using their own local server to host this image. They don't actually reference it from anywhere else. So let's just find puppy pictures. We'll take this one. You want to make sure you go to view file, because if you look at the URL right now, you'll see that it's a bunch of like weird query stuff that doesn't make sense. But if we go to view file, this is the actual URL. So all I do is I copy this and come over here. So now we're looking for the news articles. Title goes here. Title goes here. All right, so above each article. So since we don't actually close the div tag here, I'll go in one and I'll do image src equals, then in quotes, I'll paste that in, and we should be able to actually close the image off on the same line that we wrote that. I'll come in a little bit so you guys can see that. Let's bring that over. So it's kind of hard because the URL is so long. But the way an image tag works is we should be able to just open it and then actually close it within the same carets. We don't need to have like an opening and closing image tag, because it's implied that we're not going to be putting text in there. We don't need to open and close an image tag. But just to make sure, let's go back and double check the documentation. So they actually don't even use a slash to finish this off. I think I was remembering that from React. So this is actually what an image tag looks like, right? It's just one single caret. It doesn't actually close. It's just you open it and then that's all you have to do. So let me go back to semantic news. I'll erase this closing slash. Let's run this. And there's my puppy. Now, granted, it's enormous, but who doesn't want an enormous puppy? It's that easy.
So is the alternate tag necessary?
Alt is if the source goes down, what the text should say if it's so actually I
Like,
can
is it required?
no.
Okay.
So I'll actually show you if JS Fiddle would play nice. So this is alt.
Okay.
Now if I come into the same image tag again, it's kind of hard because it's a very long URL. If I come in here and I type alt equals, it added an extra quote, hello, and run that. See that? That's what alt does. So you aren't supposed to see this. Whoops, I coded this wrong. Right. I would say alt is mostly used for debugging in a larger scale website. If something doesn't load, and you know you're the programmer assigned to work on this, you could say like this is puppy picture 1 and enter. So like if you were like coming through and trying to decode this, whoops, I accidentally, how did that happen? Okay, well, yeah, you get the point. If the image doesn't load properly, it'll show the alternate text. But if the image does load properly, it actually won't show any of the text because it's supposed to be an alternative to if the image doesn't load. So here's the enormous puppy picture. If I look at every side of it, there is no additional text because it loaded correctly, so we don't need to evaluate the alternate text, even though it's still over here. We can see it right here. It's kind of squished, but it is still here. This is the same code I ran. I just fixed the file extension. And so again, with HTML, it's the same thing. Like you can only put in one image tag. So hopefully it becomes a little more apparent to others as to how you would add an image above every news story, because it's the same way that we added it to the first one. So if we were to add, let's pivot to a smaller picture so that way I can fit it on my screen. Small puppy picture. $400. All right, 400 by 480 by 360 is pretty small. Again, make sure you hit view file. If we don't hit view file, actually, I realize now I'm using a different search engine, but just make sure this doesn't say Google still. Make sure that you go to where you can open the image in a new tab, and that's all you see, because that's what you want. Now I see this has a proxy. Let me try to use this. Why is my mouse not working? I'm clicking right here. Okay. Okay. Refresh the page. All right. There you go. Quick, easy fix in case it stops working on you. You can just refresh the page. So if I run this, it does work with the proxy. Cool. So just make sure if you're going to put an image tag with an SRC that whatever you're linking is only that image in the URL. Right, that's all we can see here. If you try to link it from like Google Images, I forget, to be honest, what Google Images look like. Puppy pictures. So here, like you don't want to copy this. You don't want to copy this. You want to make sure you, let's see if it has it here. No. You can right click, open image in new tab is probably what you're going to want to go for every single time. You can also do copy image address, but there's a chance of copying the thumbnail, like copying the preview picture instead of the actual picture itself. If you type in copy image address right here, it might just copy this very small preview instead of if we go to open image in new tab, we can see it's a little bit bigger, right? So this is kind of like the preview image. If we copied this image address, it would be this slightly smaller one. But if we get it to where we have the actual image as it is, copy and paste this URL into our src tag for our image, as long as it is, and we run it, and we get it. It's that easy. And so this challenge simply says to just add an image element with a link to a fun image above every collapsible news story. So I think I kind of gave you guys a little bit of a know-how on that one, so I'll leave you to it. But that's essentially how you would create an image tag and reference an image. You want to make sure you're actually referencing just the source image, not like the search query. So this would be the search query, for instance, which will actually break my program. Run that, and now we'll see the alternative. You aren't supposed to see this, right? Because I'm copying what I asked Google to show me. I'm not copying the image. When I click on the image, Google brings me to the web page. Again, you don't want to actually copy this. This isn't going to help you. If you wanted to copy this specific image, this is where you would come in. You might see copy image address. You can click copy image address. Just know that it's going to stay the same size as it is on the page. If we hit open image in new tab, that gives us the original, and that might actually be a different sized version. So again, you can kind of see, if I was to reference this image, it would be slightly smaller than this one. It's kind of, if we look at the distance from his ear to the bottom, oh, it's about the same. Okay. So we'd probably get away with that if we just wanted to do copy image address. Paste it in, run it, get them back. It's that easy. Are there any questions about images, HTML, this challenge? This is semantic markup. This is the JS Fiddle challenge. Good. Form basics. Don't forget there's also actually slides as well. If you go right above, oh, so these are supposed to be me presenting. Cool. Okay, let's do it. Write code that is easy to understand by humans. Perfect indentation, good spacing and comments. So let's take a look at the code 1. This is an HTML. So we have a function that takes in a parameter. We take that parameter, we loop over it. We have an accumulator that we're going to add to this code, and then we're exporting it. Okay. Let's see what the other code looks like. Yeah. All right. So code 1 is probably easier to read, right? I think I get what they're trying to get at here. That's why we want to stress proper indentation on HTML, because this is essentially doing the same thing as the other function. Obviously, it's extraordinarily hard to read, but this is kind of the point they're trying to get at with the human readable code, obviously. The first one was significantly easier to read. I was able to pick out where the accumulator was, what data type we were looping over and all that, and at a moment's notice. So that's why we're focusing on like good indentation with HTML, spacing and stuff like that, comments, semantic HTML elements. Again, if you want to look into this, W3, MDN, but I was telling Jeff earlier that with HTML, what you're going to have is containers, and then you're going to have like content elements. So what a content element would be like the image tag, right? This doesn't necessarily need to contain anything. All it needs is a URL, and then we can have it display content. But the div is what contains the actual image itself, and there's a lot you can do with a div, but for right now you can just think of it as just an empty box that you can size however you want, that can contain however many HTML elements you want. So when they're talking over here about like text markup versus structural, what they're trying to say is these are meant to contain stuff, right? So header, that would be stuck to the top of your page. So do we have it? This would be an example of a header. Now, I would call it not a true header because it doesn't stay stuck to the top of my page as I scroll down. I would say that's probably more in line with a real header. Why did that? Nav, a nav bar that's supposed to be associated with navigation. This is a nav over here. And these all do pretty much the same thing. If we were to go to W3 header HTML, we can see the attributes. So it has global attributes, so there's attributes that every single HTML element is going to have, as well as events. That's DOM, that's when we actually start working with JavaScript. So right here it tells you that everything you can do with all these other HTML elements you can do on a header. And then actually there's nothing left because there's no specific attributes that are specific to the header tag. Everything that you can do with global attributes, you can do with the header tag. So what are these global attributes? You have an ID, you have a class, which is how we are going to be selecting our elements mostly when we get into DOM. But then we have other things like dir, specifies the text direction for the content in an element, the title we want to give it, so on and so forth. So if we wanted to figure out if the header had any specific attribute to it that no other element would, we could come here and we learn that it actually doesn't. It's a very, 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 very basic element. All right, so what was the next one? Nav. Let's go to nav. Right here. Are there any specific attributes that I need to worry about? Well, it has global attributes, has event attributes, no other attributes, right? Hopefully you're kind of getting the idea. Main. These are all extraordinarily basic elements that don't really provide any other functionality other than holding stuff. See, so now if I go to image, so again, this is main. I just went from header to nav to main, and all of them say the same thing for the attributes. So if you forget what attributes are, if we go to image and we scroll down, all of a sudden we have this attributes thing. Because image isn't a container, image is meant to display content. It's meant to actually provide logic. So now that I'm no longer in this structural HTML element, I have access to attributes that are specific to the image tag. And so here we could see that src specifies the URL of an image. You can only do this with an image tag, right? That's why it's specifically listed under the attributes in the image section. It's because this is the only one that can use the URL of an image to provide an image, right? But all these other main, nav, header, so on and so forth, these are literally just containers. And at the end of the day, so long as the attributes are the same, they're going to all do the same thing. So it really just depends on what you want to call them. If you want to have, a header be a header, you can call it a header. If you want to have your main section be main, you can have it be main. If you want to have everything be div, you can have everything be div. As long as, if my memory serves me correctly, I kind of don't want to go through every single one of these. All of these structural elements are not going to have any unique attributes. As you can see, I'm on footer, no unique attributes, but we go to image, or maybe font. Let's see if font has any. Font has optional attributes, right? So maybe that would be a good telltale way to see if what element you're dealing with is meant to hold something like a container, or if it's meant to actually display something like a semantic HTML element, like they say in the curriculum. So div is a container. It has an ID that the person that coded this in gave it. So if you wanted to use JavaScript, you could say, grab this container with this ID and then turn the background color green. We have a section. So now we have an H1. So this is actually going to display content, article. Is article a thing? Whew. And guess what? It's still just a plain old container. So this could be replaced with div. Let's see. Section. Let's look at section. And that could be replaced with a div. So as far as you guys need to be concerned, when they're talking about structural, all these words are for you to mentally separate out where everything is on the page, because these literally all do the same thing. They're just called different things. As long as they don't have unique attributes, which they don't, and we can tell because this says it supports global attributes and it supports event attributes, and it has default CSS settings, but it doesn't say anything about its own attributes. The same way when we went to the image tag, it was showing us, well, let's see a font again. Now we see, okay, this is different. This isn't a container. This isn't a global attribute thing. This is meant to display something. So all of these are for you to decide how you want to use them and how you want to call your elements and how you section off everything. But at the end of the day, they're all just meant to contain content, which you can provide with text markup down here. So we have paragraph tag, headers, unordered list, list element, or listed item, a block quote. I think this is emboldened. I forget that one. Strong, that's bold. EM. I forget what EM is, but you can see there's quite a bit. And I didn't take the time to memorize all these. But again, HTML is all about just structuring things in containers and then deciding where to display your content. So let's see if there's anything. There's a repo. I didn't even know these slides were here. Semantic HTML. Embed audio and videos in HTML with multiple sources. Include media captions. SVG is, I don't know what it stands for, but essentially it's where you can use images online and a transparent way. Like JPGs and PNGs, you'll probably see them like this, like JPEGs and .PNGs. They don't have transparency built into them. So if I wanted to display like a box of a JPEG, it would have to be like the whole box. but SVGs allow you to have like some transparency in the image, so that way it only shows like what it wants you to see. HTML5 canvas. I don't know what the heck that is. It's used to draw graphics on the fly. And we can see here this is not a container because it has attributes. So it has a height and a width. Default settings. Let's see. Doesn't look like I can change it. Fill style. Change the CSS. So the way they make it sound is like you could just throw this in and like be an artist and just paint wherever you want. Nope. So just be aware that HTML has been around for a very long time.
Greg,
Yeah.
can you go back to that?
Oh,
Right below where you change the color, you change that 80 to 100. Where does that change?
the size. So
Size, okay.
if we do 100%, nope, doesn't like that. I'm guessing this is probably like
100 pixels.
300, yeah, about like 150. I don't know what these zeros are. So this is showing how far out it is from, I think, so if this is the top, I don't know what they're doing here. This is like their code, so like,
XY00.
XY00. If it's over there, let's put, yeah, I don't know what's going on with these two. I could tell that this is height and width, obviously. I think this has to do with something with the margins. That seems to be what that is. I just do 8. So that seems to be 8 pixels away. And then this is probably 80 pixels down from the top. So if I change this to an 8, it should move up. Yeah, okay. So the first two are margins, which is the space outside of the red box. And then these two are the actual size of the container taking up the space of the element. So on each side it has 8 pixels of space in order to separate it from its containing element. Your browser does not support the HTML5 canvas tag. Okay. Wait a minute, what? Let's see. Can we come in here? And just start changing stuff. No. So it seems like whatever you put in between a canvas tag is going to be displayed as the alternate if the canvas doesn't load. I don't know why a canvas wouldn't load. Maybe if you had like a, does it even take an SRC? No. We might be able to do like style, background, image. Do I still have that? Go. No. So there's canvas tags for you. Basic. Don't let you change the background image. And then, yeah, I showed you guys how to complete this one. All you got to do is just go on top of each of these news stories, create an image tag, and image tags are self-closing, and just put a source. So that's the challenge of semantic news, Markdown. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Form basics. Let's take a 5-minute break real quick so people can get water, and I'll stop the recording.